So let's talk about purification then, especially regret, because we really don't hear it properly. It's very interesting. So what's purification? I like to use the analogy I said before. It's pulling out the weeds and these are the terms they use. This is Buddhist language, you know. They talk about creating merit. It just means whenever you do a virtuous action, have a virtuous thought, you are putting virtuous seeds in your mind. That's the meaning of creating merit. And every time you go against the delusion and stop doing a negative action, that's called purifying in the most simple way. It's like, every time you stop playing tennis wrongly, you're purifying. Every time you play tennis rightly, you're creating merit. It's got a very simple psychological meaning. Don't think of it as religion. So there's like we talked about living in vows. It's a very powerful way of doing both. Putting powerful virtuous karmic seeds in your mind, the habit to not kill, not steal, not lie, a proactive habit, and is putting atomic bombs under the tendencies to steal and kill and lie. So it's very sensible. And the other practice, as Lama Zopa says, that we're insane not to do every day, is called purification. So more broadly, it's referred to as the 4 opponent powers. These 4 psychological steps that we go through. There's a different order taught, but this one is the best for me, is most practical. There's the 4 R's, easy way to remember. Regret, reliance, the remedy, and then resolve. Just 4 easy ways to remember the 4 R's. So the first one, as Lama Zopa says, is the most important because it sets you in the right direction. But it's really, I've seen from my own discussions with people, we do not understand it. So I want to discuss this so we can all understand clearly what it means. So the first thing we think of is we think it's guilt. Or we think regret is thinking I shouldn't have done that. In both cases, that's actually anger. Regret, guilt is I did this and I did that, and then you conclude I am a bad person. This is what we spontaneously do. This is the function of ego. That's why we can't stand seeing our faults. We either deny them or we sink into and swim in this I am a bad person. It's automatic. We wonder where we learned this. Don't blame your Jewish mother or your Catholic mother. It's a function of the dualistic view of ego grasping. And it's also very linked to attachment to reputation. I mean, think of guilt. When you do something naughty, it's like because you've internalized that mummy said you shouldn't do it, and daddy said you shouldn't do it, and the government says you shouldn't do it, and God says you shouldn't do it. All our lives, we've been trying to be a good girl and not break the laws. So as soon as we break it, it's like guilt is you imagine all these people criticizing you. So it's like it's very much related to attachment to reputation. You're going to be blamed. You're going to be punished. It's very deep inside us, this view. So we have to consciously change this view. So what regret is, you sit down at the end of the day, I want to describe it first, then we'll do it briefly. If I even know to describe it, it's enough. Once you get the idea of how to think, because that's what you're doing. You're basically, this practice for me, you're being your own friend. There's ways of doing it very formally, like if you did your Vajrasattva retreat, you'd have a sadhana, you'd ring bells and say Sanskrit and say all these words and do prayers. But there's a way of doing it in daily life that I like to do, is totally in your own words. It's totally personal. It's just you going through these 4 steps in your mind. I think of it as like becoming my own friend. So the first step is obvious. You have to acknowledge that you did certain things. So the first level of acknowledging is actions you've done with your body and speech to harm others. That's the classic example of the heaviest negative action, one that harms another. But the point is this for regret. So let's say you killed the ant, or let's say you killed your boyfriend. I mean, whatever you did, let's say, whatever. You acknowledge it. You sit at the end of the day and you remember that day, certain actions you've done with your body. Maybe you fought with your mother, you shouted at your boyfriend, you screamed at the drivers, you talk badly about somebody behind their back. I mean, we don't go around killing and raping too many people. So this is probably, we do naughty things with our speech mostly, we stole something maybe, So you think of the things, also it's important because you carry this burden. We feel this guilt, and we carry this burden with us. So it's a really good way to unburden yourself. Because you wonder why you're feeling all stressed, and you remember because at 11 o'clock you had a fight with your mother, but you forgot to deal with it. So you're carrying it with you. So it's really important to unpack and remember what happened that day. And especially some of us have really intense days dealing with lots of people. So you think of a couple of things that day that you've done, that have harmed others. And so what regret sounds like is this. I did do that. You're talking to yourself, I did do that. I did fight with that person. I did shout at that person. And already you're feeling all entangled and tight about it because you're feeling guilty, but you own it. You acknowledge it. I did do that. And then you say to yourself, and this is the point, and I regret having that. You're talking to yourself. I regret having done that because I don't want the suffering that will come from this. So that's why the Lamas always use the analogy of eating poison. You know perfectly well that poison is something that will bring a suffering consequence to you. That's the point. So an action of killing or bad-mouthing is an action that will bring suffering consequences to you. It's not compassion yet. That comes second. This is like compassion for yourself. And it's crucial to think of it this way. The reason at this point that you're regretting killing, stealing, lying, harming, bad-mouthing, raping, or whatever it is you have done to harm another, you've got to get this habit, is not guilt, is not I'm a bad person, is not I shouldn't have done that. It's I did do it. So what happened when you did it? You sowed seeds. Everything you do leaves a seed in your mind. Now, you don't want those seeds to ripen. Do you want to be killed in the future? Do you want to be harmed or lied to or stolen from? No. So you think, I don't want the future suffering. That is the reason you regret it. So a discussion I was just having with a person recently, she said she had an abortion, and she said she knew at the time it was the right thing to do. That can be fine. But now in hindsight, having the Buddhist view, I had an abortion too, and for me, it was the same thing. It was clear as a bell, I was going to have that abortion. And as far as I was concerned, that was the only option at that point. So that's fine. But now with hindsight and the Buddhist view that was a sentient being, I killed that sentient being, I sowed seeds in my mind. I don't want those seeds to ripen. I've got to deal with them. So that's what regret is. I didn't realize at the time. It's like you don't realize that sugar causes diabetes. So just because you didn't know that sugar caused diabetes, you don't go, oh, well, I didn't know any better, so it doesn't matter. That sugar will still cause diabetes. So that seed I planted when I killed the baby, had an abortion, if I don't deal with it, if I don't purify it, if I don't pull it out, it will ripen as my suffering. Hey, I don't want future suffering. That's the energy behind regret. It's related to the law of karma. But we often skip over it in the West. We think it sounds like selfish, or I didn't know any better. What do you mean I'm going to regret it? That's not the point. Of course you didn't know any better. We didn't realize that sugar causes diabetes. What a fool I was. I didn't realize that killing will sow a seed in my mind that will reduce my future suffering. So with hindsight, you then go back and you say, well, I did do it. And I regret having done it now because I don't want the future suffering. It's kindness to ourselves. So you think of certain things you've done in this life to harm others, and you say like that to yourself. And then you say, and whatever I have done since beginningless time, in my countless past lives, I must have done billions of things, all of which have sown seeds in my mind, all of which are in my mind. And I want to put atomic bombs under them before they ripen as my suffering. That's the benefit of regret. So I regret all of them from the depths of my heart because I am sick of suffering. I don't want further suffering. I don't want to continue this habit. I don't want these things to happen to me. I am sick of suffering. Of course I regret it. Then the next step, whom can I turn to? Whom can I rely upon? Where is the doctor who can give me the methods to purify this? This is the difference between Christians and Buddhists. Christian one, you do regret, and then this is the point, you must then go to God and you beg God to forgive you. That is what purifies you. That is not the Buddha's view. Buddha would forgive you. He's a nice guy, but it's got nothing to do with anything. For the Buddha, that's like going to your doctor and confessing that you smoked cigarettes and then begging her to forgive you because that'll cure you from cancer. She will laugh at you. Because Buddha is not a creator. He does not forgive. Of course he forgives, but that's why that forgiveness is a big deal in our culture, because it's coming from the Christian view, but it's not the Buddhist view. It's not the issue. It's not the point. You've got to think this through. You rely upon the doctor, so you then visualize Buddha above your head, Vajrasattva, delighted to have found a doctor who's got medicines that you can use to heal yourself. That's the attitude. You're happy to have a Buddha, have a doctor who's got medicines. Then, you're the one who heals yourself. The doctor gives you the medicine, you take it. You heal yourself. The second part of reliance is now where you have compassion for others. And they call it reliance. It sounds curious because the first step is like the first part of the Lam Rim. It's karma. It's for your sake. The second one is like now compassion. So what do you need in order to get compassion? You need to suffering sentient beings. You can't have compassion if you never meet suffering sentient beings. That's why they call it reliance. You rely upon, you need suffering sentient beings. So now you have compassion for those you harmed. For the boyfriend you cheated on, for the ants you killed, for the baby you aborted. They're real sentient beings with whom you had karma. You have compassion now. You regret for their sake now. The first one's for your sake. Now it's for their sake. And you must purify for their sake, because you only want to benefit others from now on. And if you're really brave enough, you'll have compassion for those who have harmed you. That's the most powerful. And why would you have compassion for a person who harms you? Because they will suffer in the future. That's the basis of compassion. Understanding karma. And the third one, the remedy. So the remedy often is known as the antidote, and anything is the antidote. So if you regret killing, the antidote to that is to save lives. So throughout your life, of course you'd do that, or you'd help sick people. If you're regretting lying, you would tell the truth. That's an antidote. But this third component, done in the context of meditation, utilizing the Buddha, is said to be the most powerful antidote because it's using the Buddha. So if you don't know Vajrasattva, maybe you like Amitabha Buddha. You can visualize Amitabha Buddha, and you can say Amitabha's mantra as a purification. You're perfectly allowed to do that. It's just that it's usually done traditionally in the framework of Vajrasattva. But any mantra, you can have Chenrezig there and say, Om Mani Padme Hum. It's up to you, But here we're discussing Vajrasattva. The Vajrasattva is a tantric aspect of the Shakyamuni Buddha, but a white aspect. And it's related very much to emptiness, because the fact is, you don't, all this purification practice is like putting atomic bombs under all the tendencies, preventing them from growing and weakening the tendencies. But eventually what actually purifies is realizing emptiness. So Vajrasattva is about emptiness. Very powerful. So there's a wonderful, we'll do the practice, we'll do it briefly. The remedy itself by reciting the mantra and visualizing. So the fact is, we think, oh, well, how can just seeing the Buddha, how can that help me? Well, it's your mind. You're visualizing the Buddha. You are saying the mantra. You are doing the work. Buddha doesn't purify you. You purify you. But you're utilizing the visualization of the Buddha and imagining the nectar coming. You're doing the work, not the Buddha. As Amiyesi said, purification is the power of your regret, your compassion and refuge, your visualization, and your resolve to change. So the fourth step is a determination to change. So you reiterate your vows. I will never kill. I will never lie. I will never steal. And what that does is not just wishful thinking, it's strengthening that habit in your mind. It's all just psychology. This four-point powers is such a powerful practice. And then, as Amity says, you go to bed with a happy mind. Firstly, briefly, just be very relaxed. So the first step, just think, regret, stuff today, stuff this life, particular things you feel bad about, harming others first, mainly. Actions you've done with your body and speech. So just think, just check yourself mentally, not things you feel bad about, you cheat on your boyfriend, you harmed your mother, whatever you think, actions of your body and speech that have harmed others, think about, just recall them, remember the actions. The killing, stealing, lying, maybe you've cheated on our taxes or something, lied, said things that were not true, abused people with our speech. There's only certain things, like, certain actions of the body, harming with our body, like punching, harming, killing, certain things with our speech. Maybe you cheat on your boyfriend, something. Certain things with your speech, lying, half speech, bad mouthing behind backs. We'd love to do that one. Rabbiting on about nothing. There's 4 things. Think about. We've done some of these. Recall them and think. Now think. Talk to yourself. I regret having done that. I wasn't any wiser then. I didn't know that I was leaving imprints in my mind. I didn't know that those would harm me. I was ignorant. I don't want suffering. I'm sick of suffering. I don't want people to harm me. I don't want to keep lying and stealing and being lazy and hopeless. I don't want suffering. I'm sick of suffering. I don't want future suffering. So for this reason, I regret from the depths of my heart having done these actions. Because I'm harming myself. These harm me. I'm sick of this. It's kindness to yourself. I didn't know when I had that abortion, but I had to seed in my mind of killing. Got a karmic connection with that person. Yes, they came to my womb. They created the cause to get killed by me, but I did the action. So I regret that. And also with abortion, I regret the fact that I got doctors and nurses involved to kill on my behalf. I regret having done that. I regret that. I don't want the future suffering. And then think of whatever, I've had beginningless lifetime, so clearly I've done countless actions. It goes without saying, join the universe. Anything I have done with my body and speech since beginningless time to harm sentient beings, I regret from the depths of my heart, because I do not want those karmic seeds to ripen as my suffering, because I am sick of suffering. Maybe I've broken my vows, broken my word of honor to my teachers. Maybe I've done it to my practice. I promised I would and I didn't. Harming myself. I don't want suffering. I don't want to be disconnected from the Dharma. I want to stay close to the Dharma. I want to keep my word of honor. Because I want to stay close to the Dharma. I don't want the future suffering of that. I regret from the depths of my heart. So whom can I turn to? Whom can I rely upon? Because that's the point of regret. Guilt just sits there being miserable, but regret, you go, whom can I turn to? Where's the doctor? What can I do to fix it? So we visualize Buddha above our head, Vajrasattva, if you're familiar. A particular aspect of the Buddha, white light body, radiant, beautiful, sitting above our crown on the lotus. And if we have a spiritual teacher, you imagine it's their mind. This is primordial Buddha, really. It's the Buddha, the tantric aspect of Shakyamuni. Radiant and beautiful. So happy, be delighted. Really, refuge is like being delighted. You found a doctor, you've got methods that you can use to fix yourself. Be very pleased. Guru Buddha. Now, the second one is compassion. Now, compassion for others. First step is compassion for yourself. Now, think of those we've harmed. I think of that sentient being who came to my womb, whoever she was, I don't know, 12 weeks old. They created the cause to have a human body, like a miracle. They had the karma to be born human, but they created a cause to be killed. So 12 weeks old in my body, they got aborted. And they got harmed. They had to cut her out again because the poor little thing didn't cut out properly. So that person created that cause. It's a mutual thing. We're in together, me and her. It's not just me. I did my part, so I regret having done that. I regret the suffering I caused that sentient being. So I don't want future suffering. And now we have compassion. I forgot, so we're on the compassion one. Now I have compassion for her. And the doctors and nurses that did it on my behalf, who did it out of kindness, but they killed a human being on my behalf. So I have such compassion for having done that for these sentient beings, the ones I harmed, and all the people I've harmed since. Those I've cheated on, my partners, relationships, people I've lied to, stolen from, harmed, abused, all the things we do to sentient beings. Shouted at. I have compassion for them. I must purify for their sake. Compassion for them. And now those who've harmed me, if you can, lots of people have harmed us, sometimes brutally. Some of us have been through terrible suffering. If you can have compassion for them, and why should you? Because they, like us, will suffer the future results of their own negative actions. That's the main basis of compassion for people who've harmed us. Compassion for them, because you don't want them to suffer in the future. I must only benefit sentient beings. Another remedy. Now we just visualize nectar. We'll do very short, 3 mantras each one. We'll do 3 little visualizations. The first one, we visualize nectar arcing around from Vajrasattva's heart. Powerful, like white nectar, arcing around, entering our crown, filling us completely, and this time purifying every imprint of any action we've ever done since the beginning of this time with our bodies. So what this nectar forces all these karmic seeds out, leaving through all the lower parts of our body like filthy liquid, disappearing into space, not one atom left. Imagining this. As Lama Zopa says, the power of your wanting this, the power is the power of your mind, and that is what purifies. Vajrasattva samaya manupala, Vajrasattva tenopatita dino mebawa, sutoshayo mebawa, suboshayo mebawa, anurakta mebawa, sarvasiri membrayatsa sawakama sutsame, siddham shriyam kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan, sarvatata gata vajramame nusavajrabhava mahasama sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva samaya manupala, Vajrasattva tenopatita dino mebawa, sutoshayo mebawa, suboshayo mebawa, anurakta mebawa, sarvasiri membrayatsa sawakama sutsame, siddham shriyam kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan, sarvatata gata vajramame nusavajrabhava mahasama sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva samaya manupala, Vajrasattva tenopatita dino mebawa, sutoshayo mebawa, shaya mebawa, anurakta mebawa, sarvasiri membrayatsa sawakama sutsame, siddham shriyam kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan, sarvatata gata vajramame nusavajrabhava mahasama sattva ahum pe. Pe, you can spit it out. Pe. Not like pay, it's pe. The T is silent. So now imagine, full of this blissful nectar, all the imprints of all the actions of all the negative actions of our bodies since the beginning of this time disappeared into space. How amazing. And now Lama Vajrasattva so compassionately sends again the nectar, but this and it enters from his, arcs around and comes down and enters our crown. This time it forces up to the surface of our body all the imprints of all the actions we've ever done with our speech, lying, bad-mouthing, all the rubbish with our speech, all coming up to the top of the body and disappearing up through the top part of our body like filthy liquid. Just like Lama Yeshe says, when you turn on a tap in the sink, all the junk in the glass comes to the surface, doesn't it? Just like that. Delighted, imagining the nectar driving it up to the top part of the body, leaving the top part like filthy liquid, all the imprints of our negative speech. Om Vajrasattva samaya manupala, Vajrasattva tenopatita dino mebawa, sutoshayo mebawa, suboshayo mebawa, anurakta mebawa, sarvasiri membrayatsa sawakama sutsame, siddham shriyam kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan, sarvatata gata vajramame nusavajrabhava mahasama sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Shaya Mebawa Supo Shaya Mebawa Nurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ha Ha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Varamami Musa Bhagava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sutoshaya Mebawa Supo Shaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Varamami Musa Bhagava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe. Full of this blissful nectar, all this rubbish of the speech disappeared into space. How amazing. And now our mind, the source of all the problem. This time Lama Vajrasattva sends beams of light, laser beams. I don't know if laser beams can bend. We pretend they can. So visualize these laser beams coming out of Lama Vajrasattva's heart above our crown, arcs around, enters our crown, and instantly fills us, instantly annihilating the delusions, the ego grasping that this believes in the ridiculous me in the first place, the attachment to what that silly me wants, which doesn't exist, the aversion and the panic attack when the attachment is thwarted, and all the other rubbish, the jealousy, the arrogance, the low self-esteem, all this nonsense. All of them based on this fantasy sense of self, which doesn't exist. So all these delusions are annihilated. Like Laminishi says, when you turn on a light in a room, the darkness is instantly dispelled. Just like that. Imagine. Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suboshaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Shrim Kuru Om Ha Ha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatagata Varamami Musa Vajrava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suboshaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatagata Varamami Musa Vajrava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suboshaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatagata Varamami Musa Vajrava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe. Full of this blissful light, all delusions gone. How amazing. So this fourth purification sounds a bit hilarious. You do all the three together. It sounds really messy. And what it's doing is removing even the subtlest imprints left over from these actions of body, speech, and mind. So if you can visualize the nectar going down, nectar coming up, and then the light. Removing even the subtlest imprints. Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suboshaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatagata Varamami Musa Vajrava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suboshaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatagata Varamami Musa Vajrava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Manupalaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pajita Dita Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suboshaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Mepayasa Sarva Kama Sutame Siddham Priyam Kuru Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatagata Varamami Musa Vajrava Mahasama Sattva Ahum Pe. The fourth step, most important, Babonka Rinpoche says, the determination to change. So we've got lay vows. We've vowed, and we not kill, not steal, not lie, not cheat our partners, and not, if we've taken the fifth one, alcohol and drugs. So we reiterate them. So this is like doing push-ups every day. You just keep getting better at it. It strengthens the habit. That's the point. So we should be so delighted to say, I will never kill. It guides you to not kill. It protects you from killing. It strengthens the habit to not kill, and it purifies the tendency and prevents you from meeting the conditions in which you feel forced to kill. That's the power of vows, and that's the power of purification. It changes the dynamic of the conditions that ripen in our life, you know. So be delighted to think, I will not go, I'll not lie. So if you like say got bodhisattva vows, there are 46 secondary vows and 18 root vows, and you have all these different tantric vows. So we cannot possibly say we won't break them because there's so many. So we should be very conscious of them, and we should say, as Lama Zopa says, you don't lie to yourself. So you think of certain ones that you've got a habit. You will vow not to do for 1 day or 5 minutes. Be very conscious. Take them very seriously. It's just like, you know, you drive a car, you have all these commitments and vows. I mean, you don't do this and don't do that, and don't go over the speed limit, and don't turn left where you should turn right. You might forget them. So you remember some and you will vow particularly, I won't break that one. I'll be careful of this one. These are instructions for ourselves, helping us turn into a marvelous person, you know. So see them in a very optimistic way, not a suffocating way. So make some decisions to ourselves to break our old habits, you know, laziness or can't be bothered or get, you know, or just the stuff that harms us as well, just us, like our rubbish states of mind, you know, getting caught up too much in depression or habits to get anxious. Just make some decisions to ourselves with our body and speech actions, and also with our mind. Make some decisions to change, even for 24 hours, even for 5 minutes. I won't do this, I won't do that, I won't badmouth my boyfriend. Certain things. Make some decisions. And now we finish. Just think, we're very delighted we've done this process, you know, being our own friend, cleaning up our act, putting ourselves together, taking responsibility, being accountable, moving forward, be very happy. So Lama Vajrasattva dissolves into light and just absorbs through our crown. And just for a moment, just imagine, you know, body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, body, speech, and mind of your Lama, and your body, speech, mind. Same thing. Just kind of bliss out for about a minute. Think you're as big as the universe. No thoughts. Okay, all right, so that's it. And now, I mean, she says we can go to bed with a happy mind. Okay, Tara, what do?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for tonight, Venerable.
Well, time to go home, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions?
Any questions?
Sweethearts, anybody, more questions?
Nina.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, Venerable.
Hello, sweetheart, talk to me.
I have actually 2 questions. When we do the purification practice, why don't we regret any actions that we've done with the mind?
I know you can. I've sort of,
Okay.
the main one is here, is the body and speech where we harm others. And then that's why we then have compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. But of course you can do this. Of course we should. We can do this. Of course we can. Absolutely. Of course we can.
And can we also purify actions that we've done to ourselves instead of just others?
Well, of course it included if we've done negative harm to us. I mean, in the end, the point is here. It's a very good point, yes. The thing here, the actions we do usually that harm others are what harm us. But we also know we do heavy things to ourselves. We abuse ourselves. It's true. So we absolutely should regret those. Definitely. Absolutely. Definitely.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
all right. I mean, that's where you go into more detail. You can think of my anger, my ridiculous anger, my, my jealousy, my depression. We can, well, of course we can, absolutely should. I didn't say it all, but yes, absolutely. You should definitely think of all this with this kindness to yourself. And then when you have compassion, it's just for the actions you've done that harmed others, Do you understand? Yes, good, darling. Good point. What else?
We did have one question earlier. Terry, did you want to ask, or would you like me to ask? Terry?
It's okay. I can ask.
Go ahead.
Good, sir. Go.
How much kind of like health and strength do you need to have in order to make the 100,000 prostration practice? Like if you want to make the 3 months, how much power do you need to have in order to?
I don't quite know how to answer that. How do you, can you ask the question in a different way, sweetheart?
Let's say I have some health issue in my body, and
Yes.
I'm really doubtful that the body will be a little bit.
I understand, darling. So then you don't need to do them. You would just do some short prostrations and then say the words. You'd say the names and count the names. That's what you would do.
Yeah.
Or the prostrations, yeah, you'd say the names. You can count the names. You can't do the prostrations, sweetheart. Definitely.
Yep.
Do you understand? That would
Yep.
count. That would be fine, darling. Yeah, good. What else? That's it. Any more there?
One more question. One more question.
Yes,
In
we have.
terms, I haven't looked it up. The timeline for finishing module 14. I mean, do we do it at our own pace over the next year, for example?
So the point of finishing it means that you're qualified to teach. Is that the criterion?
Well, that would be the end. Yes.
Well, that's up to the person how long they want to take. It's up to individuals what they want. It's up to what individuals want.
Correct.
For your own sake, then you can take whatever you like. It's up to you. It's totally up to the individual, I'd say.
Correct. Thank you.
That's it, I think. All right, precious ones. Thank you so much. Jang Trup Sem Trup, Rinpoche, Make Panam Keguchi, Kepa Nyampa Mepa Yang Ne Gondu Paba Shob, Gewa Di Nudo Dag Lama Sangi Drup Yone Drova Chika Malupa De Sala Gopa Shob. So be very delighted. Think about the meaning of all this, try to be logical. If there's anything that you do as a Buddhist that doesn't help you purify your mind and doesn't help you grow virtue and wisdom, then it's a load of rubbish. Don't do it. All right. Thank you. Good night. See you, sweethearts. Bye.
Thank you, Venerable.
Bye, darling.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Venerable.
Venerable Robina.